Jai Shri Ram, everyone. I had previously made a video talking about the all religions are the same syndrome that Hindus often suffer from and gave my 2 cents on why I think that might exist. I wanted to talk about a similar topic today, which is that Hindus have another tendency stemming from that, which is that they will see spiritual so-called truth in other religions or what other religions are teaching or people are practicing, when in reality what they're seeing is something less than that, which is just kind of ethical and moral behavior. So the main example that I wanted to focus on was the difference between karma yoga and dhan. And I think that this is something that in the modern day is usually confused in the minds of most people, that if you use the term karma yoga in a conversation with people or you try to talk about this topic, the average person thinks that karma yoga means you just dedicate yourself to like volunteer work or something like that, where they're not really understanding that in karma yoga you have to dedicate the fruits of this thing to God. You can't be attached to the fruits of these actions, right? Now, where people I think get this wrong is that they think as long as they personally are not worried about getting the fruits from it, then it's karma yoga. Where in reality, even if what you're attached to is not something you're personally benefiting from, but for that other people, like people that you're helping or society at large, that they're benefiting from, as far as I can understand, this is dhan, where you're not doing something in order to, just do it because it's the right thing and you're in this particular place in life and you understand that your dharma needs you to do something. It's that you feel compassion for other people who are in a worse situation than you are, and so you want to help them by doing some kind of charity work. Obviously, that's an ethical, moral thing to do, and that is something that in our tradition we are called to do, along with telling the truth and ahimsa and various other things. But it's not the same as karma yoga. And so when we see people who are Christian or Muslim or even non-religious that dedicate their lives to serving less fortunate people, we should never make the mistake of thinking that these people are on a valid spiritual path because of the fact that we have this idea of karma yoga in Hinduism and that they are doing karma yoga, when in reality that's not what they're doing. They're either doing dhan or they're trying to follow the dictates of whatever God that they believe in or something like that. And again, of course, irreligious people doing it for these generic secular humanistic ideas of the benefit of humanity and so on and so forth. And I think that the larger issue is Hindus in the modern day, because of the erosion of the Gurukulam system, because of this all religions are the same thing, and just because of living in a modern materialistic, hedonistic kind of society, they are very keen, or not keen, but very willing to strip away the actual spiritual foundation of anything and then look at it in the most kind of superficial way that they can. So instead of seeing karma yoga as you're detaching yourself from the fruits of the karma that you're doing things that incur good karma just because those are the things you're supposed to do, not because when you're reincarnated you want to go to some swarglok and enjoy, material comforts and so on and so forth, right? And again, not for the benefit of these less fortunate people, because that's a different idea. That's basically charity, which is a good deed that would then get rewarded by good karma, but it's not a pathway to ultimate spiritual realization or whatever you want to call it. And I think that this basic issue, the issue of stripping away spirituality from everything, is is one of the main problems that we have in modern society, and I think this is true not only among Hindus but among people in general, where just take even very mundane religious rituals that people might partake in, right? I've had a lot of conversations with Hindus who I would describe as being kind of ritualistic, where they're very much practicing Hindus in that they do some kind of daily ritual or regular ritual. They go to temples, they celebrate Hindu holidays, but they have no interest in reading the Gita or, delving into Advaita or Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita Vedanta or anything of that sort, and they don't really do any kind of improvement of their character or anything like that. They basically believe in the religion and practice to some ritualistic way. And something that I've seen is that people will reframe religious practices in a non-religious framework. Like something that I've heard from many conversations I've had with such people is that they'll pray to some deity or some materialistic thing that they want. But then if you talk to them about it, many of them will say, well, I don't necessarily think that this is, there's some deity out there that's going to give me something, but it's kind of helping me concentrate my mind on the intention to have this thing and bring it forward in my life, which is going to require action on my part. And you're basically giving someone an explanation of like the law of attraction or the power of positive thinking, which is very new agey and has really no grounding in any authentic spirituality at all. And not only have I noticed this in terms of actual practices, but I've also noticed it in terms of beliefs, where you will also find people who will say, well, the avatars of Vishnu somehow depict Darwinian evolution, because you start out with Matsya, the fish, and we know that from Darwinian evolution there was life in the sea first before it came to land. Then the next one is Kurma, which is a reptile, a turtle, or tortoise. So then, you have this kind of in-between, moving between the sea and the land. Then you have Varaha, which is a land mammal, but it's not a human. Then you have Narasimha, and they will track, the origin of life from the sea to land to becoming human to being a human that's short like Vamana, and then, they basically mapping this scientific idea onto the Dashavatar of Vishnu. And I think if acharyas in the past, prior to Charles Darwin, were not talking about it in this way, then it's not valid. It's just an idea that some people have come up with because they're not really spiritual, or they're not really convinced of certain ideas, or they feel like there is some kind of need to be convinced through modern science. And so they make these kinds of associations, right? I also see this with Advaita Vedantins, with trying to connect quantum physics with ideas within Advaita Vedanta, or the idea of simulation theory with the idea of Maya, and these other kinds of things, where you have thrown out the kind of adhyatmic, paramarthik, foundation of what these philosophies and practices came from. But once you've thrown that foundation out, you're using a different foundation, and then trying to supplant, how can I fit this in with this particular model? And I think, like I had said in a previous video, if you're judging dharma from a non-dharmic framework, dharma is not going to look perfect, obviously, because you're not judging it by its own framework, you're judging it by something else. So I think this is something that's always important to keep in mind, where, I think that there is definitely a place for it where you're trying to bring people into dharma, in the sense that there are a lot of people who come from Hindu families who don't really believe in the idea of dharma at all, but they're just kind of culturally Hindu and Hindu by basically by the fact that they're not part of any other religion and don't really see religion as so bad that they feel like they want to reject it totally and call themselves an atheist or an agnostic or something. But I think that these kinds of appeals could make sense to people like them. Maybe you get them from thinking totally materialistically to starting to see things in a more spiritual way by marketing it that way or messaging it that way. But if that's then successful, I think those people have to be given a more grounded, authentic understanding as well, right? You can't use something that is meant to bring people in to then ground them. It may make sense to bring people in because, again, something that we have to keep in mind is also that we live in the modern world. And people in the past didn't really have to deal with a non-Dharmic educational system. They didn't have to deal with all the materialism that we have today. They didn't have to deal with people questioning very basic foundational ideas in our tradition, where we do have all of that now. And so I think there is a place for this kind of trying to force map something from science or something from our tradition onto something in science. But again, that's not a true understanding. It's not authentic science, and it's not authentic Dharma or Vedanta or whatever. So I think as long as we talk about that, we should say, okay, message it to certain people that way, but then bring them into an authentic understanding. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Jai Shri Ram.